So I grew up in Detroit. That's where I was born and raised, and I was actually very lucky to grow up with both of my parents. So both my mom, my dad, and of course, my little brother and my older sister. I love Detroit. Growing up as a kid there, it was pretty awesome, and I'm not being biased. The thing about Detroit is it's very unique. It has a lot of just different features and uniqueness to it. I mean, it is where Motown music came from. And of course, we have our football team who always manages to lose every game. But I mean, we have the best fans, so that's all that matters there. But there are also other things that are unique to Detroit as well. I mean, we do have the automotive industry that really helped to grow the city economically. It was a huge win for us, still a win for us as well. But one of the other things that I think is pretty unique about Detroit is the weather. I mean, it was quite unpredictable. I mean, I would wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, we might see some snow, some hail, some sleet, but by the time afternoon came, I mean, it was a 90-degree day. I felt like I was in Florida. Then again, 5 o'clock will roll around and I may get a tornado warning here and there. So it was very unpredictable. You never really knew what you were going to get for the day. So I guess that's pretty unique as well. But one of the things that I distinctly remember as growing up as a kid in Detroit were the summers. I mean, those were fairly consistent. It was pretty hot. My cousin would come down from Ohio and we would be outside from sunup till sundown. And that was back in the day when kids actually played outside. Can't say that now. And we just played all day with all the kids on the block. It was fun time, no worries at all. But I also remember going in and out of the house constantly. I mean, I had to go get a snack. I had to grab more water, some juice, get a popsicle because it was hot. And my mom would always say, Diamond, close the door after you. You have to close the door. You're going to let all the air out. And me, I mean, I was a kid. I was like, yeah, sure, Mom. Okay, I got it. I'll get it together. But essentially, I wasn't the one paying the bills. So, I mean, it just went in one ear and it went out the other, to be honest. But me, just being an adult now and actually owning my own home and having my energy bills every single month, it's actually very interesting because I understand exactly what my mom was talking about and where she was coming from. And she probably should have yelled at me a little bit more for not closing that door after me. So those are one of the memories that I remember having as a kid. But I also remember seeing my dad sit in his office, writing out checks for bills every single month. It seems like he was always sitting at his office writing checks off to send it out. And that was before we had automatic bills. And so he was always sitting there paying the bills and stuff, whether it was electric, light, car, all of it. And I also remember hearing this concept, this word of a payday loan. And I didn't actually know exactly what a payday loan was until I got into the clean energy sector. And essentially, a payday loan is a loan that you can get very easily, probably one of the easiest loans that you can possibly get, but also with the absolute highest interest rates. It's ridiculous. And with a payday loan, you're expected to pay that loan off by your next paycheck. So when 2 weeks rolls back around, it's time for you to pay that loan off. And if you don't, you're stuck with that interest bill. So it's pretty high. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot in the clean energy sector is that the number one reason that someone takes out a payday loan is to pay an energy bill. Which seems, I mean, it seems like it makes sense. If you can't afford your bill for that month, why not get a loan and double up on the next month? But really, that's actually just a very small Band-Aid situation to a huge wound of this concept of energy burden. So energy burden is actually the percent of your annual household income that you are spending on energy bills. So your heat bill, your lights, your electricity, your gas, whatever you use in your home is the percent that you are spending every single month to pay for those bills. And it's coming out of your salary every year. And so a lot of people are thinking, oh, of course, we all have to pay our bills. It's normalized. Why not? But on average, the average person pays about 3% of your annual income on your energy bills, which is pretty average, not too bad. But the issue here is that most people don't pay that. There are households who are paying double that, so at about 6% of energy bills that they're using for their annual salary. In addition to that, there are households out here who are paying 10%, 18% of their salary on energy bills. And you may think, oh, well, that doesn't sound as bad, but that is only electric, gas, and water bills alone. It doesn't include your health bills, any of your mortgage, your rent, and anything else. So that's a significant amount of money that you're paying. But what I think is even more intriguing is that a lot of these households who are having very high energy bills and energy burden are low-income communities and also communities of color, to no surprise. But what's even more intriguing is that these same households don't even use that much energy. They use the least amount of energy. So you're probably thinking, well, how do they have the highest energy burden and they're using the least amount of energy? We're going to talk about that. So this is obviously a huge, huge issue. A lot of people across the entire country are facing high energy burdens. So what are we doing in the clean energy space? We're not just sitting here. So there's the Department of Energy's weatherization program. So that's a federal program that they have and helps different households across the country. But also, if you flip over your utility bill each month, you'll see there's a long list of tips that you can do to save on your energy. For example, they'll tell you shut the blinds so that you can cool the house down. Only close or have the vents open in the rooms that you're in. Keep the windows closed when it's cold. Keep the windows open when it's hot. Stay in the basement to cool yourself down. And those are all really cute ideas. They are. But also, they want to tell us that we should be investing in all of these really cool appliances. So they'll give us a long list of, this is the refrigerator that you need to get to give you the biggest energy savings, this is the washing machine, the dryer, all of that, even the solar panels, in which I love solar panels. But we need a now solution. We need a solution that will mitigate energy burden for the long term. So all of those ideas are not sustainable, especially for people who are low income. What do you mean you want me to go buy a $900 washing machine? Who can afford that? I want to solve the issue now. I have bills to pay today. And so while those solutions are very nice, we need to essentially look at the root causes of energy burden. For example, as I mentioned earlier, energy burden has two different parts to it. It evaluates the amount of energy that we use. And so how much are you using in your home? Are you cutting the lights off, or are you just leaving them on all day and leaving everything plugged up? But what we also talked about are the communities and the households who have the highest energy burden are using the least amount of energy. So that can't be it. That can't be the reason. And if anything, we're being very cognizant because we are low income and we cannot afford to pay those bills. And so we talk about this issue of housing, thinking about how our homes are built, the insulation, the structure of the home. It doesn't matter how efficient you are trying to be. If your home is very old and inefficient and not insulated, it's still going to cost you triple the amount to be able to cool your home down or warm your home up. And that's an issue. That gets into this concept of housing. I mean, think about redlining. And for those of you who don't know, redlining is a concept of when maps were created to tell mortgage lenders, realtors, not to invest in these areas. These areas were red flags to them. They would not get their return on investment. Those were not the areas that you should be investing in. And what has it done now? It still impacts those same communities, those same households and neighborhoods years and years later. Those same neighborhoods that were once identified as redlined areas and communities are the same areas that have the highest energy burdens and the same areas that are predominantly Black and low income. So you can kind of see the relationship here between discrimination historically and today, housing, but also energy burden. The second part to energy burden is the income. How much money are we actually bringing in? And I feel like this is the part that is often really neglected. I mean, in the clean energy space, we talk about save this, save that, energy this, but no one's talking about how much money we're actually bringing in. Has anyone thought to close the income gap between communities of color and our white counterparts? No. What about education and literacy, especially when it comes to finances? That's neglected. That's not in our educational system. And that's an issue because energy bills are only going to get higher. They're only going to get higher. We can't even afford to transition into clean energy if we're not making enough money. How do we learn how to make our money, but also learn how to manage it, how to invest? Those are things that we are not talking about, but it has everything to do with the clean energy sector and why we're seeing disparities in energy burden. So we're probably thinking, well, what in the world should we do? How do we get to these root causes? How do we solve this issue of energy burden? So there are a few things that we can actually do. The first is actually investing in education systems that are going to actually prioritize financial literacy. What are we learning in our classrooms? What are we doing? The other thing is housing. We should be working with the housing sector. We should be working and paying attention to those who have housing disparities. Older homes, insulation. We're not doing that. I mean, take a look at what happened a couple months ago in the Bronx. An entire Section 8 apartment fire spread rapidly, killed tons of kids, tons of adults as well, because there was a space heater, because people were using gas stoves to keep themselves warm in the winter in New York. That's an issue. That's a racial justice issue. It's a social justice issue, an energy issue, and an income issue as well. So there are tons of things that we can do. And lastly, I want to actually call on those who are in the clean energy sector to be very intentional in the work that you're doing, to be very interdisciplinary, because we understand that energy burden is a housing issue as much as it is an income, a public health issue, and a sustainability issue. And the only way that we can actually work together and mitigate energy burden, especially in communities who are historically disproportionately impacted, is to work collaboratively and to understand that it will take everyone's support in order to have a better tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening.